Hello and welcome back to Tales of Lumin. Today we are talking Hearthstone yet again, and in this video I'm going to be covering my top 10 favorite and top 5 least favorite Grand Tournament cards. Grand Tournaments come in just a couple of days. We don't have much time before it's out, and I wanted to get my first impressions of these cards out there completely. So I already released my card review videos, but since then I've had more time to think about these cards. I've actually played, I've used some of these cards in the Tavern Brawl that happened over the past week, and my opinions have changed a little bit. Now, I want to put this out there before the expansion actually launches, and then a couple of months down the line, I want to reassess the cards and see how my opinions have changed. So, starting at number 10 with my favorite cards, and I feel I need to say before I get started that these are my favorite cards. These are not the best cards in the card set. I don't think I'm qualified to say, okay, these 10 cards are going to be the biggest game changers. I don't think so. Instead, I'll tell you what I like the most, and I'll tell you why I like them, and what I dislike the most, and why I dislike them. So, here we go. Number 10, Brave Hunter. The artwork is amazing. I want this golden. I just love the artwork on this card. I don't know, it's beautiful. But, aside from that, I think it'll work really nicely in a Face Hunter deck, and I like the idea of Face Hunter actually evolving a little bit when Grand Tournament launches. Evolving in that it can become like its own proper deck type. It's different when you add cards like this. They're slightly more difficult to use. The Brave Hunter, it's a 1 mana cost 2/1, which is pretty average. I mean, there are a lot of them out there, but its effect allows you to deal 4 damage with your hero ability when you have nothing else in your hand, and if you think about that, it's going to clash with certain cards that Hunter uses right now, like Quick Shot, but this is the kind of card you hang on to, and then you throw down when you think your opponent doesn't have any direct answers for it, and your hand is obviously empty, and then you start hero ability for 4 every turn, which is devastating. I mean, you could already be working your opponent way down by the time you put this on the board, and then this can just push it over. I like the idea of this card. I like it a lot, and I do think that when I make a Face Hunter deck, this will probably be in it. Also, the artwork is amazing. That's probably the main reason I put it there. I just like it. Okay, I just like this card. Next up. That's the wrong way. Number 9. The Warhorse Trainer for Paladin. So this is a 3 mana 2/4, and your Silverhand recruits have +1 attack. Straightforward, basic, synergizes really nicely with Muster. It just makes your dudes much more impressive, much more useful. Having them just on 2 attack, up from 1, makes a big difference, because you can put down, for instance, just, let's say you, on turn 2 you coin Muster out, turn 3 you play this, then you've got 6 damage on the board. Imagine just going face with that. Then in the next turn you could potentially Blessing of Kings on one of them. Damn. You're going to be killing that dude real quick. This will go so nicely in a aggro paladin token style deck. I can't wait to test this out. And the stats on it are pretty good. Like 2/4 is nice on something that you want buffing your minions. It's like a Leok, but obviously for the Silverhand recruits. I mean, that's the best way of looking at it, right? Leok is good in many situations. Like your whole Unleash Leok thing. Same situation with this card. I like it a lot. And again, I've been wanting to try a token paladin using some of the cards that were already added in GVG. Like, for instance, Solemn Vigil, the other cards that cost slightly less when minions and stuff die. Those effects and stuff, they've always been very appealing to me, but I've never really had a way to use them properly. So this, I think, could help facilitate the token paladin dream. But we'll see. I mean, it's not set in stone yet. I mean, this might not work that great yet, but I do like the idea of buffing the dudes up. It could work. Next, number 8. Lock and Load. So, this impressed me much more after I actually used it in the Brawl this past weekend. 2 mana, each time you cast a spell this turn, add a random Hunter card to your hand. It's really, really fun. That's probably the reason that I put it on my list. It is super fun to use. It's incredibly random. Now, there are only I don't know, a handful of hunter cards. Like, okay, there's a lot of hunter cards. Okay, it's not a handful, but it's not like it's coming from the entire card set. It's not from the entirety of Hearthstone. You have a little bit of predictability, because if you get in a random hunter card, there's like probably something like a 50% chance that you can get something that'll do direct damage. There's also a really good chance that you'll get another spell, so you can keep your lock and load going. Now, this is good both in the early game and the late game. I've realized that now after I played the Brawl a couple of times. Early game, you have things like your secrets, you have things like Hunter's Mark, you have a bunch of tools that you could use to activate this, and if you get lucky, this can be so ridiculously good. I mean, I think that at some point you're going to probably see a video clip on Trollden's channel of some guy lock and loading like into 6 arcane shots in a row, doing 12 damage to his opponent's face, or something ridiculous like, oh, arcane shot, quick shot, and then like a weapon, smack face, dead. You know, that kind of thing can be facilitated by a card like this, and I think it's just so cool. And again, it's a different direction for Hunter. I said this in my card review videos, that this is the kind of thing that will actually allow hunters to safely move away from face and hybrid and like mid-range face and all these silly decks that are almost identical. I mean, sure, there are a lot of hybrid hunters out there, mid-range hunters out there right now, but face hunter is still so appealing to most people that they just stick with it. This could make control hunter, or maybe you could call it random hunter, a thing, because there's a lot of random effects right now, but I really like this card. It's fun. Next, speaking of fun, Confessor Paletris. This is the Priest Legendary, 7 mana for a 5/4. Inspire, summon a random legendary minion. That's a pretty great Inspire. Again, so crazy random, but so potentially devastatingly good. Just think about it. You obviously want to consider playing this on turn 9, so you can play it in hero ability in the same turn as to like get a bit of value out of it, because I mean, think about it. You could use this hero ability, get Chill More, which is that big taunting dragon, okay, and then she's protected. Well, mostly, because if Chill More dies and you have a dragon, then she might die, but whatever. Get what I'm saying? There are ways to make this work better. If you make like an Inspire based priest deck, then you could potentially put the sparring is it sparring partner? I want to make sure I know what it's called. I've actually got it here somewhere. It's called the Fencing Coach. Sorry, close enough. Sparring Partner, I think, is the Warrior card. Put the Fencing Coach in there. That makes your hero ability cost 2 less the next time you use it. So you could play that on any given turn, maybe on turn 5, 6, or whatever, and then you use that as prep for this. Then you can play this on turn 7, play your hero ability on turn 7, bam, instant value. I love the idea of this. Again, it's so random that you could Inspire, get King Crush, Rush Face, do a lot of damage. You could get Deathwing, 12/12 on the board. Great. You could get any of the legendaries. You could get Lawwalker Cho, like I said in my card review video, and just ruin the whole game for both of you, or whatever, you know? The random factor and the fun factor is far too high, which is great. Which is why I picked this card for number whichever it was. Moving on. I say whichever it was because I've already lost track. 7. Number 6. Number 6 is an interesting choice for me. It's actually, I would say it's 2 cards, but it's actually just the one. So, Tuskar Totemic. This is the new Shaman Totem Summoner. Now, Totem Shaman's going to be a thing, and I really love that. I'm hoping that they release an alternate skin for Shaman soon, so I don't have to play as Thrall. But anyway, Tuskar Totemic, 3 mana for a 3/2 Battlecry. Summon any random totem. Now, this is number 6 along with Totem Golem for me. These two are together at number 6 just because I like them both equally, and I like the one because of the other one. I like the other one because of the one. You get what I'm saying? I like them because of each other. Totem Golem's a 2 mana 3/4 with Overload 1 that can actually be summoned by the Tuskar Totemic. I like the idea that of Shaman actually having its own archetype that it can play as, and Tuskar Totemic 3 mana for the 3/2 is okay already, but the random totem you can get there, that could potentially be a game changer. You know, sometimes you could need the heal, you could get a Mana Tide totem, you could get the Flame Tongue totem. There are lots of totems in the game that are actually quite useful in different situations, and this guy, he could bring any of them into play. It's nice. It's nice. It's another body on the board as well, even if you just get a Taunter or the 1/1 or something. There's always the chance that you get the Totem Golem, which I was just talking about, which is great. I like this card, and this is the kind of card that could potentially actually get me interested in playing Shaman. I know that's out there, right? I've never even considered seriously playing Shaman, but this is a good step in the right direction. Next up is number 5, Nexus Champion Sarad. So, for the same reason that I've added a lot of the others here, this guy's here for his fun factor. I've used him, played as this guy, inspired a whole bunch, added a bunch of random cards to my hand, spells to my hand. He is a 5 mana legendary, 4/5 in stats, but his Inspire is just so crazy, over the top, random / good, that I would probably even consider using him in most of the decks that I make, just because he's sort of like Loatheb, where you can actually put him in any deck and he will be useful in some way, shape, or form. Certainly he'll work better in some decks, like if you're going for a spell heavy deck, if you're going for instance, like the Lock and Load Hunter I was talking about before, where you actually have a bunch of spells in there to activate it, could work well in there. He could give you literally anything. He could give you a Fireball, he could give you a Pyroblast, he could give you Flame Strike, Blizzard, those are all mage cards. He could give you buffs and stuff for your minions, all the cards in the game. You know, all the spells that are available to all the different classes, he has access to all of them, and it will make every single game that you play him in an adventure. He would obviously work better in an Inspire-based deck, but I see him working in pretty much anything regardless. So if you get this guy in a pack, you should be happy. Good neutral legendary. Now, I feel I need to add again on top of this. This is mainly just here for the fun factor. Oh, also, he has a really cool voice and animation whenever you inspire that spell out of him. The little portal opens to some ethereal plane and the spell pops out at you. I like it a lot. I like it a whole lot. So, number 4. We're moving on. Number 4 is Kingvarian Rin. I know most people probably expect this to be high up on my list, and it is. It's pretty high up. He's 10 mana for a 7/7. Battlecry, draw 3 cards. Put any minions you draw directly into the battlefield. This guy's ridiculously good. He's regarded as the best legendary in the entire set just because of how crazy that effect is. If you put him in a Wallet Warrior, in a Control Warrior style deck, wow. Like, he could end a game for your opponent right then and there when you play him. You could draw into 3 fat legendaries. Imagine you play him, you draw into Grommash Hellscream, a Sludge Belcher. I'm just sort of spitballing something here. And let's say a Grim Patron. Okay? Then maybe you have a 0 mana Whirlwind in your hand from the Emperor Thaurissan that you play. Oh my god, rather maybe Emperor Thaurissan. You draw into Emperor Thaurissan, Sludge Belcher, Grommash, and then bam. Like, what is your opponent going to do? He can twist in Nether and that'll save him, but that's literally it. You know? It's just such sick value. I mean, now, consider for a second you don't draw any minions. You are still playing a 10 mana dude. You're gonna, obviously at this point of the game, probably be on like 50 armor, as warriors usually are. They're annoyingly difficult to kill. Then you'll still just draw 3 cards, put them in your hand, have them ready for use. 3 spells, potentially. They'll be useful, of course. I mean, that's not bad. And come on, how many spells do you usually have in those decks? This guy is just so stupidly good. Speaking of, next, another legendary. I like this one a lot. I actually like this one more. That's why it's higher up on the list. This is Dreadscale. This is the smaller of the 2 Hunter legendaries. 3 mana for a 4/2. At the end of your turn, deal 1 damage to all other minions. I just love this. It is such a great anti-aggro tool. Now, I could have put Acid more in here with Dreadscale, but I didn't really want to because I don't like him as much. Favoritism. Definite favoritism. But 3 mana for a 4/2 is so-so, you know. It's the same as that Panther that stealths. But he is exactly what a Control Hunter deck needs to survive the early game. That's what I think, at least. So you could potentially hide this guy behind a secret, Okay, so you put up a freezing trap or something on turn 2, turn 3 you play him to just decimate all the small dudes on the board. You know, the meta right now consists of a whole lot of aggro paladin, Zoolock, face hunter, stuff like that. Most of them have minions that are on 1 life. This will just deal with all of them instantly. I like this card a lot. I like the fact that it's such a cheap legendary. Okay? Big fan. I have not gone to play him yet. I've played Acid more, obviously, because he was in the Brawl deck for the Hunter this weekend. But Dreadscale looks like he's going to be a ton of fun. He's also a beast, so there's that synergy. And you could get him from a Web Spinner. You could get him from a Ram Wrangler. You could get him from a bunch of, you know, different places. I like this card quite a lot. Next. The Mysterious Challenger. This guy, I looked at him at first and I was like, well, okay, 6 mana, 6/6. Not a big deal. But then I thought about the battle cry, and I realized that he's just ridiculously good. Stupidly good, actually. I would say on par with like Varian Rin. I know, that's a bit crazy, but I'll tell you why right now. Firstly, the battle cry is put one of each secret from your deck into the battlefield. 6 mana, 6/6. Now, in Paladin, there are a couple of secrets that are worth using. Competitive Spirit nearly made my top 10 list. Okay, it's pretty damn good. They all cost 1 mana. So, Competitive Spirit, Avenge, Noble Sacrifice. I would even go as far as to say Repentance. Okay, there are secrets. There are Paladin secrets that you can use. Decent secrets. Now, if you run this guy, you're not going to be running Mad Scientist at all. You don't want him in your deck. You want this guy to pull the secrets out. But say you have 4 different types of secrets. Maybe he pulls only 3 out. Okay? Worst case, he pulls 2 out. You are paying 6 mana for a 6/6. Keep in mind now that Dr. Boom, the most imbalanced card of GVG, is 7 mana for a 7/7. This guy's 6 mana for a 6/6. He comes out 1 turn earlier. You get this guy out. You get 2, 3, maybe even 4 secrets out. That's 2, 3, maybe even 4 cards out of your deck. Okay? Into play. That's 6 to 9 to 10 mana's worth of value out of this one guy. Plus, you must consider you would have had to have drawn those cards. You would have had to have had, like, 3 turns, 4 turns pass before you'd have all those cards. But this guy puts them into play immediately. Immediately. Think about it like Dr. Boom and his Boombots. See the secrets maybe as the Boombots. I don't know. Something like that. You could consider visualizing it as something like that. This is a crazy good card. And I think that you would only run one of them, of course, because you fish all those secrets out. You stack them up there. You might not have enough if you play a second one. So you play only one of these dudes in literally any style of Paladin. And it'll be so good. So good. I mean, you could play a secret-based Paladin, of course, but this guy will work in anything because you'll get Avenge out. You'll get Redemption out. You could get, I don't want to say Repentance, Competitive Spirit out. A bunch of stuff out that will just confuzzle your opponent completely. 3 secrets. Bam. The hell could they be? He has no idea. He tries to attack into this dude. He hits a Noble Sacrifice. He kills this dude. Oh my god, he comes back on 1 life. What the dizzle, Paladin? Why you confuse me like that? You know? This is a tough card to play against, and I love it for that reason. So good. It almost made my number 1 spot. It's on number 2. Now we're going to move on to number 1. I'd love to hear your opinion on this. Moving on to number 1. Number 1 is a tie. Number 1 is the Wonder Twins. Darkbane and Lightbane. I love these 2 cards more than any of the others that I've just spoken about. They are so ridiculously cool. I firstly love the fact that they are only 3 mana. So let's look at Darkbane first. So Darkbane is Aegis Darkbane, 3 mana for a 3/4. Decent stats. 3/4 is nicer than 4/3. Whenever you target this minion with a spell, deal 3 damage to a random enemy. Okay. Lightbane. 3 mana, 3/4, same stats. Whenever you target this, and you is bolded, so your opponent is not going to trigger this. Whenever you target this minion with a spell, gain Divine Shield. So the one has Divine Shield, the other one does 3 damage to a random enemy. 3 damage is a lot, by the way, especially this early in the game. So I like these because, firstly, they have super cool art. Secondly, because they're abilities are so useful at any point in the game. And thirdly, because they're cheap. They are super cheap. 3 mana. So now, in a aggro-ish type paladin with a bunch of buffs and stuff, you could even fit this into the aggro paladins that everyone's playing right now. That's kind of like plaguing the ladder. Think about playing this on turn 3, maybe coining out something like a Blessing of Wisdom on Lightbane. Okay, then she'll get Divine Shield, Blessing of Wisdom, and she'll be a 3 mana 3/4, which is ridiculously good. Now sure, she can get silenced, but then she's still a 3/4 body. She doesn't lose the big body, which sounds a little disrespectful, but you know what I'm saying, okay? Same thing goes for Darkbane. You play her, you cast a spell or something on her, and then instantly she decks whatever minion your opponent has on the board, if it has 3 health or less. Maybe you play 2 different buffs on her. You know, you could potentially put a Blessing of Might on her, Blessing of Wisdom on her. You could put that new spell, Seal of Champions or something, let me look what it's called, on her. Seal of Champions. You give it Divine Shield and 3 attack. You could put that on Darkbane. It would be a bit of a waste on Lightbane because she gets Divine Shield anyway. But you get what I'm saying. It makes some of those spells, like Blessing of Wisdom for instance, which I've loved since, well, the first time I used it. I love the flexibility that you get with just having Blessing of Wisdom in your deck, but now there's much more of a reason to actually put it in there, because, again, you get to have that synergy, and then at the same time, if you're not going to use it on your 2 Banes here, Lightbane and Darkbane, you could pop it on an opponent's minion, stop them from attacking with it, or if they do attack, you get a card. These 2 legendaries are just so fun as well. I mean, just the infinite possibilities. They're neutral, obviously, so you can put them in any deck. I obviously just like spitballed the idea of Paladin, but I mean, they'd be great in Priest. I mean, how scary would it be having Aegis Darkbane pop out on turn 3, coin Power Word Shield on it as well, goes up to 6 life, 3 attack, immediately kill something with 3 damage. Next turn they put Velen's Chosen on you and it's just massive. Man, that's scary. So these 2, by far my 2 favorites. I love these. Well, not by far, but they are my 2 favorites. Thus far, at least. I realize that maybe down the line, they could prove to not be quite as big a deal as I currently think they are, but that's just the nature of things. So those are my top 10 cards. I want to mention a couple of extras here, the honorable mentions that I think could easily have made my top 10 list, that I think are going to be semi-game changers and pretty useful. I'm just going to briefly mention them so that you guys know I was thinking of them. Let's start with this one. Ancestral Knowledge for Shaman. 2 mana, draw 2 cards. Overload 2. I like it. I think it could fit quite nicely in a Lava Shock deck where you can un-overload yourself. And it's 2 mana for 2 cards. I mean, come on. That's great, especially in the later game, where you don't really care too much about that 2 overload. I think this is a super good card. Next up, Murloc Knight. I'm going to go quickly through these. This is the Paladin Murloc. 4 mana for a 3/4. Inspire, summon a random Murloc. I like the idea of it. I like that it's a Murloc. I like that you can get any Murloc out there. You could potentially get the legendary. You know, that would be well worth getting. You could get another Murloc Knight. It's a fun card. Really fun. Argent Horse Rider. 3 mana for a 2/1 with Charge and Divine Shield. I like this because it's good for buffs. It's good for taking out those pesky knife jugglers and stuff like that. It's a nice little snipe minion that you could put in something like an aggro paladin, even face hunter deck. I like it a lot. Healing Wave is just stupid. You know, it can restore potentially 14 life if you're lucky. Let's move on. I hate that card. 5 mana, Tuskar Jouster for a 5/5. This is, if you win the joust, so much better than Guardian of Ancient Kings, or Guardian of Kings or whatever, which is 7 mana for a 5/6, I think, which only gives you 5 life. This is really good. It's a Paladin card again. Next up, Darnassus Aspirant. I like this a lot because of the huge advantage you gain if it doesn't die. Battlecry, you gain that extra mana crystal. If it dies, you lose it again. What are you really losing if you lose it? Nothing you, well, can't live without, right? I like this card. I think it's going to make Druids stupidly crazy if people don't have an answer for it. Next, the Cut Purse. This could really have been so much better, but I love the idea of it right now. In a Stealth Rogue type deck, having those extra coins pouring into your hand would be great. The stats are so weak that the chances that this thing lives, man, I really feel like Rogue got the short end of this stick here. You'll see now when I move on to my worst cards. Because, like, man, it's so difficult to use. 2 health makes it so difficult. If it had 1 extra health, it would be great. But there you go. Competitive Spirit, I mentioned I really like the secret. When your turn starts, give your minions +1/+1. I like it. First secret that you get that actually procs on your turn. It's an interesting idea. It's again something that your opponents will struggle playing around. Fencing Coach. 3 mana, 2/2. Next time you use your hero ability, it costs 2 less. This is a battle cry, so even if you play him and he dies, you still get the effect. It's going to work very nicely in Inspire-based decks. I like this card a lot. Confuse for priests. Swap the attack and health of all minions. Big fan of this because it will spawn a completely new archetype of druid, of priest decks. I don't know why I said druid. Of priest decks where you'll play defensive, defensive, defensive. You'll have this fat taunt wall up, then you'll just flip the switch and you'll kill your opponent one time. I think that this is being severely underrated by a lot of people, and the value of it is lost on a lot of people. It's going to be really good. I think it's going to be really good. It might be a little difficult to use, but man, this is something you're going to have to consider every single turn that you're playing against a priest. Confuse. You know, those 2 Death Lords, they don't look very threatening right now, but when he flips them over to 8 2s, then my friend, you are going to feel them attack you. Lock and Load is here for some reason. I don't know why. That's an accident. Twilight Guardian and Chillmore. These are the 2 dragons that I put in here. I like Twilight Guardian because it's given dragon decks an opportunity to actually survive. Just survive. Its battle cry is if you're holding a dragon, gain +1 attack and taunt. It's 4 mana for a 2/6. Could be a 3/6 with taunt. Pretty good, right? It's pretty good. You can hold it for the super early game, drop it, turn 3 or 4. Hopefully get some value out of it. The battle cry is slightly better than a joust because it's a bit more consistent. I like the card. Good for dragon decks. Chillmore is 7 mana for a 6/6. Taunt, Death Rattle. If you're holding the dragon, deal 3 damage to all minions. So the Death Rattle is only going to work if you have a dragon in your hand, and it'll clear most boards nowadays. I wouldn't say this is anti-aggro, but this, if you consider for a second, it could potentially cost 5 mana in a paladin deck with the dragon consort. Play the consort on turn 5, turn 6 you can pop this out. Maybe coin the consort out on turn 4, turn 5 you put the 6/6 taunter out. It's really strong, and the artwork is crazy cool. So there you go, those are my honorable mentions. We're going to move on to the worst cards now. There are only 5 of them. Again, not really worst, more my least favorite cards. And this is again also subject to change, and that's the whole reason I'm doing it now before the expansion launches. At number 5, Flame Lance. I just don't like this card because it's only 1 mana more than Fireball. Why would you run this over Fireball? Deal 8 damage to a minion. Sure, it's 2 extra damage, but for the 1 extra mana, I don't know if that's worth it. Okay, I'm just not a big fan of it. Mages already have so many good spells that this probably won't see much play. Next up, Mulch. 3 mana, destroy a minion, add a random minion to your opponent's hand. I don't like this because it's not really effective removal. If you think about it, I mean, yes, sure, it hard removes that minion from the game, but you could potentially give your opponent something so much better. So much better. You remove like a, I don't know, crappy little minion, you throw something huge in their hand. That changes the game in their favor. You know, it's just, Shaman, Druids, they kind of, I'm mixing Druid and Shaman up there. Druids kind of have a lot of this already, but I just don't like it. It's not my style. Next up, Ball of Spiders. 6 mana, summon 3 1/1 web spinners. I don't like this at all. It's a spell. I just don't like the idea that it costs 6 mana. I think it would have been okay on like, maybe even just 5 mana. 4 is a bit overkill, like that's way too good. But like 6 mana, oof, man. On turn 6, 3 1/1s. Sure, you're gonna get some stuff from them. And yes, I realize this could potentially work in a control hunter deck where, like, maybe on turn 6 you're not really dead yet, you know? Maybe on turn 6 you're still in a commanding enough position to afford something like this. I don't know. I just don't see it working. I don't see a player surviving something like this. The player actually playing it. 6 mana. My god, you could play the Mysterious Challenger instead. Just think of the difference there, the contrast. Get 3/4 secrets and a 6/6 instead of 3 1/1s. Next up, number 2. My second least favorite card. The Argent Lance. 2 mana for a 2/2 weapon. Battlecry is a joust. Reveal a minion in each deck. If yours costs more, gain +1 durability. I don't know. Like, is this for Pirate? Paladin? Is that what it's for? Is it just because Paladin needed another bad weapon other than Light's Justice? Why? Why? 2/3? Maybe if it had 3 attack. Maybe then. You know? Because you got a joust. If you fail the joust, which is highly likely, you get a 2/2 weapon. The hell's that? Who wants a 2/2 weapon? I don't want a 2/2 weapon. This is terrible. Speaking of terrible weapons, my worst or least favorite card, the Poisoned Blade for Rogue. This is such a big middle finger pointed at rogues right now that, man, rogues are unhappy. I played a lot of Rogue. I still play quite a bit of Rogue to this day. I'm unhappy about this. This was supposed to be a way for rogues to use their hero ability, use the Inspire mechanic. Because rogues are being shut out of Inspire completely. They are the only class with a hero ability that you cannot reuse constantly. This is supposed to allow you to reuse it 4 mana for a 1/3 weapon. Your hero power gives this weapon 1 attack instead of replacing it. So, you know what I think could make this decent? Is if it gives your weapon 3 attack instead of replacing it. No, maybe 2 attack. Maybe 3 is a bit extreme. 2 attack. Okay? But 4 mana. What? You'd have to use, like, your hero power 3 or 4 times to make it worth 4 mana. And then you're using it 3 or 4 times, which is going to cost you 6 or 8 extra mana. I don't understand this card. I don't know where they were going with this card. I don't get it. Maybe, just maybe, if they gave it, like, 5 durability, then it would have been a different story. Because then you can constantly buff it up while attacking. It becomes sort of like a Gore Howl then. You know, but with much less damage, and instead your damage goes up, not down. But I don't understand. There are so many different ways that this could have worked. In its current form, I just don't think it does. So there you go. I'm finished. There are no honorable mentions for the bad cards. Those are my favorite and least favorite cards. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys at least agree with me on some of them. I'd like to hear. You could maybe put a little list below of your top 5 and bottom 5 cards. It's interesting to me because I've seen already a lot of conflicting opinions after, you know, watching a couple of the big name streamers and YouTubers putting theirs up. My list is different. Definitely different, but I think I went more for the fun factor over the crazy imbalanced factor, but hey, there you go. Check back here soon for Grand Tournament videos. Give this one a like, share it, and do all that good stuff. Most importantly though, happy Lightbane and Darkbane, because they were my favorites. They're at the top, and maybe Mysterious Challenger. Hey, happy all those new cards coming very soon. Happy that.